There is a question. How did Hawa, or Eve, may peace be upon her, come about? It's a very interesting question and it has a beautiful answer. According to some of the narrations, Adam alayhi salam was the only species, the only of his kind, mankind, one. There was no one else. Naturally, he was feeling lonely because the angels, there are so many, there are so many, me, I'm only one. So he used to want company. He used to ask Allah for company, something that would grant him comfort. One day when he got up, he noticed someone looking very similar to him. A woman was given to a man as a gift after great prayer. MashaAllah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really to make us from those who can appreciate that and who can understand it. Because many people forget this and they don't realize that this woman was actually a gift. But let me quickly also remind the sisters, live your lives in such a way that you are like a gift, not a burden. Ameen. So
in 1955 in Syria, there was a family of 5, a mother and a father and 3 daughters, who decided to flee the country, flee Syria, and head to America. Now the father told the wife and the 3 daughters, listen, I'm going to go to America, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to get everything set up, and then 3 weeks later, you and the 3 daughters come meet me in California. So the father flies to California, is getting everything set up. 3 weeks pass, the mother takes the 3 daughters, and they head, from Syria to America. Their first flight was from Syria all the way to New York City, where they had a layover. Now, when they landed in New York City, the customs said, hey, you guys are here new to America. You need to take all your hijabs off for the green card photo so that you guys can, stay in America. So the mother, being by herself, not really knowing the English language, is nervous and scared. She said, okay, she took the hijab off and took the photo, put it back on. Next oldest daughter did, second oldest daughter did. The third daughter, a 13-year-old girl named Hala Atik, said when it was her turn, hijab is part of my faith and I don't want to take it off for this photo. And the security, they kind of went back and forth with her and they said, well, listen, little girl, we'll send you back to Syria if you don't take your hijab off for this photo. And she said, I would rather go back to Syria. And this is a young 13-year-old girl who flew all the way from Syria to New York in a foreign country. They're in a foreign country, she should be scared. She doesn't know what's going on. She said, I would rather go back to Syria than stay in this country if you guys are going to take my religious, rights away. Security came, management came, they put her in a back room, they made each older sister go to her separately and talk to her. They had the mother go talk to her. Then the 13-year-old girl said, I don't care who you bring back here. I will not take my hijab off for this green card photo. After 2.5 hours passed, the whole security's there, management's there, cops are there. They finally said, hey, little girl, you can keep your hijab on, you can take the photo. And I have the photo, it's a beautiful photo, it's a black and white photo. Now the mom is super upset at this time because she's nervous, she's missing her husband. Syria to New York is not an easy flight. And she's like, you're so stubborn, why don't you just listen to me? So they grab their suitcases and she's like pissed off at her daughter. And they run to their next gate, they miss their flight. So now this family who spent all their money, they're like, Syrian refugees, they're now like even more scared and even more worried. And the mom's like, now what do we do? They go to United Airlines, they talk to them, they negotiate, they're like, well, we can't do anything, you guys are making it difficult. Finally, they mutually agree that we'll put you on the next flight to California. They get on the next flight. While they're flying to California, the mom is yelling at this 13-year-old girl like the entire time. Like, you're so stubborn, I miss my husband, I'm tired. They land in California, and their husband's tired. They land in California, and their husband's, the father's there, and he's in tears and he's crying. And he's like, you're alive, you're alive. And they're like, why wouldn't we be alive? The flight that they were supposed to get on, American Airlines number 191, crashed, killing 295 people. It was the biggest crash in American Airlines history. And the young girl, Hala, 13-year-old Hala, looks up at her whole family and says, hijab saved our life.
And one of the most remarkable stories, Ya Ikhwan, I have heard with this regards, is a story of a woman who lives in the city of Mansoura in Egypt. A lady who said that I came from a very poor family and her husband was absent for one reason or another. And she said, my daughter became very ill on one particular evening and she began to fever like never before. And I could do nothing for her. I have no money for food. We spent that evening hungry, let alone buy her medication. And I would pray 2 rak'at to Allah Almighty, 2 units, and call upon Him and attend to my daughter. And pray and call and place my trust in Him and call to my daughter. Attend to my daughter. And the hours would pass. It was now midnight, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Then they hear a knock on the door. Who is it? It's the doctor. It's the doctor. So the lady, she puts on her hijab. She opens the door. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Where is the girl? He says. The lady, she says, she's in the room. Allahu Akbar, who sent him? He comes into the room. He checks her. Prescribes for her medication. And then leaves the house. And he says, payment please. Payment. And the woman began to cry. She said, doctor, I don't have anything to pay you with. He said, what do you mean? How rude of you. You should be ashamed of yourself. Don't you have any shyness? You call me in this late hour of the night to attend to your daughter, and you know you have no wealth to pay me. She said, doctor, wallahi, I didn't call you. I don't even have enough money to buy a phone. We haven't even eaten this evening. He said to her, what do you mean you didn't call me? Is this not door number such and such? She said, no, that's the door next door. The doctor, he began to weep. Because he understood. The doctor, he began to weep. Because he understood that this was Allah who sent him their way. He said, please, let me go back inside. What is your story? Who are you? How did this happen? And she explained the story. He understood. So he bought them food for that evening. And he went and he purchased and delivered the medication himself. And he gave her a monthly wage as well. And I'm sure that if I ask any one of these brothers to mention a similar story, you could. When you needed Allah, you had nobody to ask but Him, and you were given.